Hello everybody. I'm here to help you with an area that gets my employer clients in a lot of trouble on a regular basis. You have chosen California in which to do business, probably the strictest place on the planet Earth when it comes to employer-employee relations. Many things are good about it. There are some things that make it quite tricky. One of the biggest problems that I find that a lot of employers face is they turn around and they hire people and they call them independent contractors. Then something happens in the relationship, it doesn't work, doesn't last, whatever. And the next thing you know, a lawyer is suing you or you're being taken in front of a labor board. You're using the standard defenses. We wrote a contract, they acknowledged that they were independent contractors, or, I had no control over what they're doing, etc., etc., etc. And guess what? At the end of the day, you end up not only losing, but now you have to pay fines, penalties, etc. And the biggest reason that employers call people independent contractors is, of course, they want to save on payroll taxes. But there's also workers' compensation, which you need to have in California for employees. And in addition to that, there are certain standards and guidelines that you need to follow when it comes to overtime, when it comes to breaks, when it comes to lunch. So I'm going to help you understand this area a little bit better because I get asked it all the time. The most important factor, if you had to look at all of the factors combined, that stands above the rest, in my opinion, is control. How much control do you have over either the employee or what or how they're doing the job? Because there was a very famous case, the Borello case, that dealt with pickles. They were being raised, and the companies stated that the farmers were sharing in the profits. They weren't supervised, they were doing their own work, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, without going into the details of the case, they were held liable, the employer, because they were in control. They were the ones who had the land. They were the ones who decided when to plant the crop. They were the ones who dealt with the only purchaser of the cucumbers, etc. But those items offered enough control, even though there wasn't direct control over the employee. The employee was totally allowed to do as they wished. That wasn't enough. So the key or first element that they're going to look at is going to be whether that person is conducting for you something that is in your line of work or not. Let's say, for example, I run a charity and we hire someone to create the light show for our event. That's not what we do. Yes, we create events, but we don't do lighting shows. We don't create lighting shows. We don't do anything about it, with it, I should say. That person probably is an independent contractor. I don't tell him how to dress. I don't tell him anything other than what time to come here, have the event ready to rock and roll, what time we're ending. He decides when to come. He decides what equipment to bring. He has purchased the equipment. It's not my equipment. And he charges me a set fee. That's the end of the relationship. Now, bringing into play another factor is who is investing in the equipment. Like, for example, if I turned around and took that lighting person now, and I bought all of the lights, and I stated to them, you have to dress a certain way for my events. You have to be there at such a time. You need to train yourself, or let us train you, in the use of these lights that I use. Now, all of a sudden, do you see how an independent contractor relationship slowly melded its way into becoming an employer-employee relationship? In fact, the yellow cab case is another landmark case in this area. It also talks about, leasing cars to drivers and, them being independent, paying a flat rate every day for the use of the car, or being, I should say, being part of the yellow cab environment. But again, they also lost their case. So apart from whether the person's engaged in your regular line of work, the second thing that they're going to look at is the tools of the trade. Who's supplying them? and who's paying for them. Now, the other thing is they're going to be looking at whether it's a regular part of what you do or something incidental. For example, if we threw parties for my charity and we threw events all of the time, and I required lighting to be prepared for that, then all of a sudden it's really part of what I do. Just like if I were to hire a lawyer, you know, some lawyers are hired as independent contractors and some are hired as employees. The independent contractor one is easy. If they don't work at my office, I give them assignments, I tell them when I want it done, they know what to do, and I don't see them until I have my assignment or they simply email it to me. Really, have I controlled that person? No. The problem you may have, though, is if I'm their only customer, then the difference between them being an employee and being an independent contractor, now all of a sudden it becomes a little bit tighter and you have to be careful about the gray area. If that's a person, and again, there's no black and white in this area. The presumption in California is that the person is the employee, so you've got your work cut out for you right away. So if I don't supply the tools or instrumentalities for the person's work, that's a good thing. They supply whatever they need, fine. Control, do I tell them how to dress when they're working for me? Well, if somebody's in the office from 9 to 5 or whatever hours they choose to work, they have to abide by a certain set of regulations for how we dress in our office. If I have an employee come into my office, for example, and work here from 10 to 5, maybe they want to use our library or any one of our resources available, the question becomes, do I state to this employee, this is how you need to dress, this is how you need to do things, or do I give them full independence and they simply walk in when they want to use our library and then leave? Again, the more control you have over simple things, even how they dress, how they comport themselves, how they treat clients, how they research something other than providing them guidance, that is when you're slowly taking them and making them more of an employee than you are an independent contractor. The next factor to look at is whether the services that you require something that is a special skill. For example, let's say in our offices we hire somebody to back up our servers, our data, work on the technological infrastructure. That is a special skill. That isn't something that we normally do. It's more likely to be conducted by an independent contractor than an employee, unless we are a massive organization that has its own IT department and its own employees. Then also looking at what that person is doing. Is it the kind of a situation where here it's conducted under the supervision of somebody, or is it something that the person can do alone? You know, I hire an electrician to change the lighting sequences here. The person doesn't need supervision. If, on the other hand, they require my supervision or the supervision of one of my other people, all of a sudden, what is that? Covering into the employment area. Also, does that person have an opportunity for profit, depending on what kind of skills they bring to the table? So, especially managerial skills. So if that person can sub out their work, you know, I hired them, but they say, okay, so-and-so is going to do this for me, or it's going to need several people, I will hire them and monitor them for you. That is more likely to be something that's in the nature of an independent contractor. Another very key factor to look at, how long do you need the person for? So I've heard of law firms that hire so-called paralegals, but they're permanent. You know, they work 4 hours a day, not every day, but they've been working there for 1 or 2 years and they're independent contractors. Well, in reality, if you've got somebody there that long, they're not independent contractors. They're most likely employees. Well, actually, they are employees. How do you pay the person? Do you pay them by the number of hours they spend, or do you pay a flat fee? Do this job, cost you $2,000, finish it, here's your check. Last but not least, do the two parties think they have an employer-employee relationship, or do they think that they have an independent contractor relationship. First of all, if you don't believe in contracts, now's a good time to start believing in them. It's always good to document it. But the contract itself will not guarantee that the person is an independent contractor. In California, there's a presumption the person is an employee, so be careful there. But if you meet all of the qualifications, talk to the person. What do you think this is? And then simply put it in writing, both parties signing it, so that you know where you both stand. Because where do you think all of these cases stem from, where employers are losing tens of thousands of dollars? They stem from employees who thought that they had an employment relationship. Even if they were paid as independent contractors, for some reason they didn't understand the law. And also be careful, because you can also have a situation, which I've seen happen before, where you don't carry workers' compensation. Something happens to somebody who may have been an independent contractor, may not, but now they're filing for workers' compensation. You are involved in a lawsuit that could be worth $500,000 or $1 million. You don't want that happening to you. So I think that workers' compensation is just a good thing to have, no matter what. But the breaks and everything else, I think it's reasonable, but there are some things that I think that are a little harsh. For example, be aware of this. Let's say an employee loves working for you, you're involved in a fun project, maybe you work for a film production company and you're having fun, and they don't want to take a lunch break. If they don't take that lunch break and they're actually an employee, you're in trouble. And they could hold it against you in the future, because you're responsible to make sure that person takes a lunch break, even if they don't want to. Even if they say, oh, no, I'll sit, I'll eat at the table, blah, blah, blah. No, you are responsible. They have to take the time off. You have to monitor the time that they actually take off. I hope that I've helped you understand this area so that you don't get yourself in any problem situations, because trust me, it's not worth the headache. Assume that they're an employee for yourself as well. Look at all of the factors, make your decisions. If it costs you more, adjust your budget, hire less people, do whatever it takes, but cover them as employees so that you don't end up in a situation that could literally bankrupt your business, and it can. So be careful out there. It's a crazy world. Good luck to you. Cheers.